focus coming in from the United Kingdom, where there has been a terror strike at the Packed Pop concert in Manchester. At least 22 people are feared dead and over 50 injured in the latest news that's coming in. The blast at Manchester Arena, the largest indoor arena in Europe, occurred during a concert where US singer Ariana Grande was performing. Officials are now calling it a terror strike. Right, let's go across to Ollie Barrett, joining us live from London with the latest. Good morning, Ollie. It is quite tragic as we wake up to this news in London this morning of this strike in Manchester. What more can you share with us? What are the authorities saying this morning?
Well, the latest detail from Greater Manchester Police is that raised death toll that you were mentioning. 22 people killed in this attack and 59 more people injured. We are also hearing from police the news that everybody feared, that among those 22 people who have lost their lives are a number of children. Ariana Grande, of course, a pop singer, a pop star with a young fan base, and there were many teenagers and children at the concert in Manchester. Of course, that was part of the reason behind the chaos that we saw unfold after the explosion went off, was the fact that many young people who were in attendance at the venue were trying to get out and trying to find their parents or relatives or friends who had come to pick them up and take them home. So that led to some of the chaotic scenes afterwards. The other fresh detail we've had from Greater Manchester Police is the confirmation that this was not only a terrorist attack, but a suicide attack. They also say that they believe it was carried out by a lone attacker. That attacker has died, and they don't believe that anyone else was directly involved in this incident in Manchester, although they are saying, police, that they are looking into whether he may have been a member of a wider terror network of some sort.
Right, Ollie, but what are they really saying about the kind of blast that occurred? Because some reports indicating it was a nail-filled blast that occurred, because of which the splinters spread wide across and hurting many people. As you're pointing out, several people, apart from 22 who are dead, are injured. So what was the kind of ammunition really being used in this attack?
Police are calling it an improvised device. As you say, we are hearing from eyewitnesses that many of the wounded appear to have been affected by either shrapnel or nails of some kind, metal of some kind. So that is leading to speculation that this could have been some kind of improvised nail bomb. The actual explosion took place in the foyer of the Manchester Arena, so not actually inside the auditorium area where the concert had been taking place. Clearly, as the concert ended and people were leaving the venue, the explosion happened, and that will be part of the reason we suspect behind the number of deaths that happened. Clearly, with 22 people dead, this was a significant explosive device to have claimed quite so many lives. It would have been an enclosed space, of course. In terms of the investigation into who carried this out, who this suicide attacker may have been, and how this attack was carried out, there will of course be a great deal of evidence now. The suicide attacker's identity will presumably be able to be established reasonably quickly since the body will have been at the scene. There will also be a lot of CCTV camera footage from Manchester Arena, but also in the streets leading up to the venue. Police will be looking at the arrival time of the attacker. Did he time the arrival at the scene to coincide with people leaving the concert? If so, that will lead authorities to believe that this was a well-planned attack indeed.
Ollie, about the Prime Minister there in Britain, Theresa May, of course, has condemned this attack, calling it appalling, a terrorist strike. So what more really is the administration now doing in trying to secure not just Manchester, or perhaps also going to the bottom of it if this is a larger network after all, and in terms of security precautions being taken across UK?
That will take place at 9 a.m. UK time, British summer time, so in about an hour and a half from now. In attendance will also be the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, but also policing officials, intelligence agency representatives as well. Now, the purpose of that meeting is broadly twofold, I guess. It's partly to inform the Prime Minister and government officials about all the latest information that the investigators have been able to glean about this attack and who carried it out, and all sorts of detail like that. But also, as you suggest, it will be the British government coming up with some kind of response to what we've seen in Manchester. Now, we already know that Greater Manchester Police is saying that there will be a very visible, heightened police presence on the streets of Manchester in the coming days, and much of that police presence will be armed. We have also heard from the Metropolitan Police here in London that the policing presence will be boosted in the British capital, and again we will see more visibly armed police officers out on the streets. That's partly to protect against any potential future incidents, but it's also partly to reassure the public here.
Right. Ollie, request you to please stay with us. I'll come back to you in a couple of moments. We have some more reactions that have come in on this terror strike. We'll take a listen in.
This was at the conclusion of the Ariana Grande concert. Currently, we have 19 people confirmed to have lost their lives in the explosion and around 50 casualties that are being treated at 6 hospitals across Greater Manchester. My thoughts are very much with those that have been injured and lost their lives and their loved ones at this terrible time. We are doing all that we can to support them. Officers from Greater Manchester Police and Emergency Services are working at the scene and are supporting those affected. We are coordinating the operation here at Greater Manchester Police Headquarters. An emergency number is available for all those concerned about their loved ones or anyone who may have been in the area. The number is 0161 856 9400. We are currently treating this as a terrorist incident until we have further information.
We were in Arena and we had a bang and I just run for my life and told us to calm down because it was a balloon.
We heard the last record come on and people started streaming out, and then next thing is a big flash. Didn't really hear the bang to start off with. Big flash and then a whoosh of air, and just thought, what the hell's that? And then a smell in the air.
The lights came up after the concert and everyone was getting up to leave, and all of a sudden there was a big bang and all of the seats like shut.
Right, let's go back to our colleague Ollie Barrett joining us live from London with further details. Ollie, like you were giving us details about how this is being considered as a suspected suicide bomber who blew himself up. Of course, no organization just as yet has taken responsibility for this dastardly act, but could this also be seen as just one of those lone wolf attacks taking place in Manchester?
Absolutely it could, and that has always been the fear of British policing authorities, and that would apply to other European cities and police forces as well. It is incredibly difficult to disrupt lone wolves, as they are called, if they plan these attacks without any outside assistance. Now, often what we do see when a terrorist attack is carried out, that some kind of external group tries to claim responsibility for it, even if there was not necessarily any direct involvement in planning the atrocity. But if this was a man, or woman we should say, acting completely alone without contact with any outside group, then that does make it very difficult indeed for security agencies to be on top of. It could of course be someone who hasn't come across their radar before. Nonetheless, if this was as well planned as it is beginning to look, this was an improvised explosive device of huge power. This was also clearly timed to coincide with the end of a concert, so there appears to be some knowledge in that regard as well. Then certainly already for authorities there will be some questions about why whoever this person wasn't on their radar, why this plan wasn't picked up before it was able to be carried out. Also important to note, I think, that whoever did carry out this attack, clearly targeting an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, would have known, therefore, the fan base that would have been in the building at the time. So we can very clearly say that this was an attack targeted at children and young people.
Right, targeted at innocent lives after all. Ollie, also in terms of the precautions that have now been taken, we believe that a lot of roads have been sealed off, metro stations being closed down, because that's something that sanitation perhaps of the entire areas reaching up to Manchester is what the police is deciding is the best things to do now.
Yeah, you know, it's a huge crime scene, for one. The investigation that is now taking place needs as much space as it can possibly be given. Manchester is a major city, though, and the city will want to get back to some kind of normality as quickly as possible. Nonetheless, we know that the train station right next to Manchester Arena will stay closed, we believe, for the entirety of Tuesday. But in the aftermath, in the immediate aftermath of this attack, police were telling people to stay away from the area. And as you say, train networks being shut down, the roads were being closed off as well. But that made it incredibly difficult for people to get away from the scene of the attack. As I say, many young people had meetings lined up with their parents to come and pick them up and take them away. Many others would have been travelling away from Manchester onwards to other cities and towns in the UK, back to their homes for the evening. So what we did see as well in Manchester were taxi drivers driving to the scene to ferry people away and give them free rides home or to another destination. We saw people opening up hotels and cafes, providing people rooms and spaces to wait until they could meet with whoever they were meant to be meeting with. We saw people giving up rooms in their houses, in their homes, giving people a bed for the night so that people who couldn't get home had somewhere to sleep. So amidst all of the horror in Manchester, we certainly also saw a city coming together to do what it could for the people that had been affected by this attack.
Right, and Ollie, if I may, looking at the fact that early elections have also been called in by the Prime Minister over there, Theresa May, what sort of an impact would a terror strike really have on the political outcome of the situation right now in the UK?
Well, it's difficult to predict what effect it might have on the outcome, but we can certainly say it's going to have a huge effect on this election campaign, one way or the other. Now, Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition Labour Party, and Theresa May, the incumbent Prime Minister, have spoken. They have agreed together to suspend campaigning in this election race indefinitely. So we don't know how long this period will last. Other major parties have essentially signed up to that idea too. The Liberal Democrats, the Scottish National Party, north of the border, have decided not to release their manifesto as planned today. So there is a pause when it comes to campaigning. Nonetheless, it will have a huge effect on this election race. We should say as well, the Conservative Party, the incumbent governing Conservative Party, had been trying to make this election partly about security and safety and about concerns, as they would have it, about the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, who is in charge of the Labour Party. So, you know, analysts might be looking at this and thinking that this would be electorally news which might benefit the Conservative Party, but certainly all politicians trying to stay at the point where they might agree to resume campaigning.
Do you believe, Ollie, that now the investigative authorities will be closely checking all those people who returned? Because we believe close to 1,000 people from Britain had flown off to countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and hundreds of them did return to Britain. These are the people who the investigative authorities will be now looking upon very closely in terms of investigations.
Very much so, absolutely. And we know that hundreds of people, as you suggest, have travelled to Syria to fight with the Islamic State group there and have returned to the UK. And we've had multiple warnings from British security officials about the fact that many of these people are back on British soil and may be planning attacks. Now, if that were to be the case, if this attacker turns out to be someone who has travelled to somewhere like Syria and come back and has been on the security services radar, then again, that will lead to huge criticism and great questions about how this attack was not picked up. So, yes, that will certainly be a major line of inquiry.
Ollie, major countries in Europe, and of course UK included, have been victims of terror in the last 1 year alone. We've seen France, we've seen Germany, reports from Turkey in several of such attacks. Even United Kingdom is not spared. Many people today are questioning the readiness of the European Union as well as the UK to be able to deal with the terror apparatus. What is it that experts continue to say over there?
Yeah, that certainly is pointed out, and I think, you know, what police and intelligence agencies are saying and have been saying for some time is that, honestly, given the scale of the threat and the scale of the problem, that unfortunately from time to time attacks will get through. Police had been saying here in the UK for a long period of time that there had been that gap, if you like. There had been a number of years in which the UK had appeared to be safe in terms of the fact that no attacks had got through. But certainly the scale of the threat is so large, the scale, as you were suggesting, of the amount of people coming back to European shores who've been fighting overseas, it is incredibly difficult for security agencies to be on top of all of these people all of the time. If you think that there are, as they say in France, thousands and thousands of potential terror suspects, you cannot track all of these people 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The manpower simply isn't there. It's not possible to have those resources in place to be completely safe all of the time.
All right, big questions mark there after the terror strike in Manchester. Ollie Barrett reporting from London. Thanks very much for the moment. Well, that's some more news that's coming in on the story. Let's take a closer look.
They'd come to enjoy a night out with American singer Ariana Grande. But just as the concert finished, it turned to chaos. Witnesses say up to 2 blasts were heard at the Manchester arena, sending people fleeing in panic.
It was huge. It was almost it was, imagine like a 2 or 3 story brick wall had just separated itself from a building and just fell flat onto the ground. It was a really loud, sharp bang.
Greater Manchester Police said on Twitter that emergency services were responding to reports of an explosion and went on to ask people to avoid the area to allow first responders to do their work. It's not clear what caused the deaths and injuries.
The more it was, the panic was getting worse. So once we got out and went inside the foyer, and we can see from the left there was another huge stampede coming towards us.
Manchester has one of the largest indoor arenas in Europe. It can hold 21,000 people. Train services to and from Manchester Victoria Station, located under the arena, have been cancelled and the station's been evacuated.
People running, screaming. We opened the windows and we could hear people shouting, and the police very quickly came in. It was, as I say, they were very quickly on the scene. It was very well dealt with from what we could see from where we were. A lot of ambulances, police, but people were running, and a few of my housemates went down to right to kind of close to the scene, and that they kids were, it seemed to be a very young crowd at the concert, and a lot of them were a lot of screaming kids. It's horrific.
Britain's on its second highest alert level of severe, meaning an attack is considered highly likely. And police are treating what's happened in Manchester as a terrorist incident.